Catherine Tate has made an impact on the entertainment world as a small busload of characters who all happen to be played by her. Uniting them all, however, is her writer's gift for notation. Admirers of her comedy need not fear that her intermittent transition to straight acting will stop her being funny. There is too much she finds amusing, and that might include me. We met in the 7-Eleven.
Yes, that's right.
It was damn flattering you knew my name.
Oh, come on, Mr. Anderson.
You know, I get that. Yeah, people say, I haven't seen you on TV lately, Mr. Anderson. I always say something foul to them, so they'll remember it. You know? I went off and I bought you the box set of the first series. I went into Borders in Cambridge, and there it was, Catherine Tate, first series. Yeah. And I picked up the box, and there was sort of a piece of styrofoam in it, not the discs. And I said, look, there's the discs aren't here. And the girl behind the counter said, no, people steal them. Wow. And that's when I knew how big you were.
I think they probably steal anything they can get their hands on. I can't take credit for being so...
Yeah, you're doing pretty good on DVDs. It's a big thing for you, isn't it?
It has sold well. Yeah, it has sold well. Partly because the first series went completely under the radar.
Yes.
So no, because the BBC didn't actually publicise the first series.
That was BBC Two, right? They were...
Yeah, BBC Two.
Doing that sort of trial by...
Well, I didn't go on BBC Three, which is usually their kind of comedy piece.
There is a BBC Three?
There is a BBC Three.
It's over here somewhere. On the way to 4.
Exactly.
That's to oblivion. Yeah?
Exactly. No, BBC Three. It's kind of there.
I'm only 4.
I know you are, but I'm obviously a BBC name and I can't say anything bad about them. So they do, you know, BBC Three is kind of like their nursery slot, yes. You know. But they didn't ask me to go on them. They just put me straight on BBC Two and sort of ignored me. And then it wasn't really until I went on Comic Relief that the public sort of knew who I was. And because of that, my second series went out. But most people thought that was my first series. And I think that's why the first series sold so well on DVD.
And this very useful rumour, which I won't say you and your brilliant managers started.
What was that?
This rumour started spreading there wouldn't be a third series, which of course whetted everybody's appetite for it. Yeah?
Oh, it's just so boring. Because what happened?
No, I thought it was exciting. I thought you were managing as well, you see. Because it cranks up the...
No, I hate
it wasn't a stratagem, yeah?
No, of course not. I hate all that. And even now, because what they do is sometimes the press come down to the recording of a show, and if it's the last episode in a series, they will literally pounce on you and say, "You're going to do another series," and you go, "Well, to be honest, I've just finished this one, so I've never said no, I've never said yes, but they just want to make a story, you know."
Well, the one thing must be a stratagem, because I know BBC One was keen to get the thing transferred to BBC One.
Yeah.
And was it your decision to stay where you were?
On BBC Two.
Smart thinking.
It was, because...
why is that smart? Because it gets you away from ratings pressure. I know the answer. It gets you out of ratings pressure.
And also, more importantly, it means I'm not subject to BBC One editorial control, which is far more stringent than comedy on BBC Two, and I don't really...
Why? In what respect? In language and so on?
No, I don't think it's necessarily language, because after a certain time, you know, the watershed is about you're allowed to say certain words and this, that and the other. I think it's more about content, and the BBC One audience is much more mainstream whatever time it goes out on. And so I don't think that any of my shows, the episodes of my shows could sit between, you know, the family and the green grass. Right. Which is kind of the type of comedy. Although Little Britain went to BBC One.
What's been happening to TV in terms of audience is that, suppose it was, say, 25 years ago. Actually, I don't think you could have pulled off the kind of stroke you pulled off 25 years ago. Things were just too different. But suppose it were, then the mass audience was, you know, like 15, 20 million people and so on.
Yeah.
And it meant it was totally life-changing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You became a prisoner of it. Whereas you can at least survive. You've got some chance of going down the street and not having a conversation with everybody.
That's right, yeah. Because, weirdly, what it's done is celebrity has become its own strange beast, and I think we're far more interested in the thing that is celebrity. But bizarrely, what that's done is, because there's now so many perceived celebrities, you can, as you say, retain a bit of your own.
It's more of a niche market.
Yes, it is.
One of the many things that impresses them is you actually can control your television career. It didn't. Things weren't that way once.
No, I know.
Controlling your television career was pretty well impossible.
Yes, I mean, I think, for everything that is different now, to the detriment perhaps as it was, as they talk about the golden era of television, which I don't think we're in now, but it does mean that people, or in a position that I'm in, I can have say about what happens or where it goes, and to like, for example, literally saying, I don't want my show going on BBC One, and them going, okay, whereas I guess 25 years ago they'd have gone, well, I'm sorry, it's going on BBC One.
Of course the big organisations would like to control the product.
Yeah, sure.
After all, it's their money.
Exactly. Well, I sort of think, if I'd have been in a different time, I would be in studio-based sitcoms that I didn't particularly think were funny, maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because there wasn't a template to do anything anything different.
Now you have to make actual choices with the knowledge that choices will be carried out. So that puts you the responsibility elsewhere.
Right. Absolutely, yeah.
The mistakes are yours.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it is a danger. It's good, and sometimes it's a little bit worrying, because sometimes I think I sort of think I sometimes get things sent to me, and I think, I know this is a terrible idea. What worries me is you don't know it's a terrible idea, and you think it's going to be a good idea if I do it. Do you know? And that's how.
I know exactly how it is. I want to take you back to school, because I think you were well educated in a faith school, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I was well educated in many faith schools, because I kept
But the faith was usually Catholic, wasn't it?
Oh, it was always Catholic.
So Latin based.
Yes, actually, we never did anything Latin. No, we never studied Latin or anything like that. Occasionally, if you missed 10 o'clock mass, you'd have to go to 11 o'clock mass, and that was awful, because it lasted a day.
But you did English for sure.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I'm fascinated with people who work in comedy and use language precisely. The kind of comedy I like best is where it comes from. Where did you get the idea of doing that? You see, by the time I was first interviewing people like, say, Victoria Wood, Victoria would tell you about Joyce Grenfell or something, but a generation has moved on, and now people of your age have been watching Victoria.
Victoria Wood, absolutely, definitely. Most definitely, Victoria Wood was a huge kind of it was an inspiration in. I mean, obviously my stuff is very southern. Well, some of it is I do northern characters, but Victoria Wood for me is like Alan Bennett in that incredibly intricate but specific geographical characters. Although she crosses the board in everything fantastically. But it was when I saw Victoria Wood and Julie Walters, even though I know Julie Walters doesn't write, it was just like, oh my God.
She takes the character up to another level, and things like Acorn Antiques.
Exactly.
It is writing, really, isn't it?
It is, absolutely, because it's taking what's on the page and going somewhere completely different with it.
It's been a great development in British comedy, the rise of the women. I think there are two great developments in British comedy, especially on television, with the breaking out of away from the whole Cambridge Footlights sort of thing that I came from, anyway, broadening the range of the intake, and the rise of the women. And Victoria played a big part in that.
Oh, absolutely, Victoria Wood, and especially then when I went on to college, started college in 1990, and met gay boys who worshipped her, and then me and them kind of, do you know what I mean? It's like a Victoria. I mean, I know Victoria
the fag hag.
But Victoria Wood's got masses of millions of fans all across the board. But there is gay fans are very, very loyal, and what's interesting is that I have a gay following as well now.
Well, you do a gay character.
Yeah, I do actually.
Yeah, but does he know he's gay? Or?
He's a modern bachelor whose private life is his own, and he's rather discreet about it all. So he's mortified.
What's his name again? Faye Dunaway. There's.
He's called Derek Faye.
Derek Faye. Right. Yeah, but everything's a tip-off and a giveaway, but he doesn't really get it.
Exactly. Yeah. And we've sort of thought, should we ever really pontificate about the backstory of Derek, or should we just let it be what it is? Do you know what I mean? And who knows, you know? And also, sometimes we get complaints about the show.
Yes.
Mainly if you're saying anything about an animal, that really does it. Things I thought I was going to get massive complaints about was when I once dressed up as in a burqa and did all this stuff about Islam, not a peep.
Yeah, really?
I did, absolutely. And they literally at one point went, we might have to film an alternative ending to the show because not a thing, but did one thing about a dog trainer who,
yes.
Oh, and they were literally knocking at the door, you know, it is incredible.
Don't I know it? I once wrote a pioneering column in the paper about dog mess. I was the first journalist ever to take a serious view of dog mess and the kind of people who, with their dogs, spread dog mess. And the reaction was, I almost had to leave the country.
Oh, my God, it's so depressing. It really is. I find it so
It's Britain,
depressing.
your country, which is my country too, is in many ways depressing, but it's the meltdown of the civil order in the sense that, which is your material.
Yeah.
These people shouting at each other all the time.
Yeah.
See, Britain used to be a secret country. People didn't shout at each other when they talked. Now they're shouting and you can hear them.
Yeah, definitely.
Shouting into their mobile phones, providing you with material. Like Nan, for example.
Yeah. Well, this is why I'm convinced that quite a lot of mainstream comedy does get quite high ratings, and it's because I think in nursing homes across the country, it's just fixed to ITV and BBC One. I do think that.
Nan is a nursing home material.
She's not.
No.
Indeed, she's not.
She's too powerful.
Exactly, yes.
Is she the product of... we better, for the few people watching this and who won't have seen it, Nan is a monster, a horror.
Grotesque.
Yeah.
But she walks among us. They walk among us.
Walks along us with her legs apart, even when sitting down.
She does. She does. It's amazing how many people have picked up on that.
Did you see her? Yes.
That
because it's a Freudian fear thing. Right?
Is it?
Yes. The vagina. Have you ever heard of the vagina dentata?
No. Is that something in the vagina monologues?
Yeah, we it isn't in the vagina monologues, strangely enough. The vagina with teeth is a Freudian nightmare.
Right.
It's a nightmare of entrapment. We won't go into details, but when Nan spreads her legs like that and speaks the way she speaks, you are really arousing deep fears in self. Where did you see her somewhere?
Yeah, well, that starts like that.
Skip, we've got a camera on that.
That was the way my godmother sat. And she'd hike up the skirts like, not meaning to, you know, there was no shock element to it. She just used to sit with her sprawled out legs like that. And so it was just something that I kept.
The fairy godmother.
The fairy godmother, yeah. And she'd have that, and she'd have, because my godmother was of the same generation of my grandmother. She was like a lot older than my mum. And she'd always have her handbag there and a walking stick that she used to get the handbag up, loop it up on the thing, and it's just what they did. And there'd always be money stuffed down the sofa. In fact, when she died, there was £3,000 in cash in the bag next to her.
It's Dickensian.
It is, I know.
There's a play right there. I think you see plays all around you, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. I want to ask you that because the stories obviously come leaping out at you, but stories, in my experience, only leap out at you if you've got the eyes and the ears for them. And how much of taken the way she sits is taken your godmother. But what about the opinions? Her opinions are terrifying. Right?
Yes, they are. They're not really based on anyone I know. A couple of incidents are actual incidents of my grandmother, but they're only they're not contentious ones, because everyone thinks that this character's racist, and I've never actually really said.
No, she just hates everybody. What's racist about that?
Exactly, I think that's a very liberal attitude, isn't it?
I've got it. Yeah.
For everyone. It's just, you know, it's fun to play someone that you can use the privilege of age as a kind of amnesty for saying lots of things, but. A couple of things were my own grandmother's, and one was that my cousin had a baby. She just couldn't get it. She couldn't understand that the child was called Francesca, and she just said, "She's had the baby, isn't she?" And we went, "Yeah, she has." She called it a funny name, isn't she? And we went, not really, she called it Francesca, and she said, she's calling it Tesco's. And she just wouldn't let go that this child wasn't called Tesco's. But that's all it was. In my actual show, I used that, but I went on for her to be very about this baby and that it was very ugly, which I then had to assure my cousin that we weren't actually using that element, about the story.
What about those two idiots who spend all the time in bed, and they've got this that strangest and most repellent thing in life, the misplaced self-confidence? They're convinced that they're fascinating, and they really intrigue each other.
They do, and the thing is, they just love their life, and that's a good thing, isn't it?
I wish I could sort of do him, as it were, so that you could do her for me, because I love her.
Oh, Jesus, like, you won't believe what's happened to me.
You're...
This is classic me.
There's no one like you, classic. They really thrill each other.
They do.
They're boring beyond description.
Yeah. And they're a little bit based on a couple of people I know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you fascinated by boredom?
What I'm fascinated by is the way people buy into their own banality, but that's very rude of me to say, because I think that
you're probably the least banal person I know, and you're right, of course, because otherwise they couldn't put up with it.
Yeah, but I find it. I know someone who. What the nub of the story is I went to Marks and Spencer's and they'd run out of chicken. Right, that's the nub of the story. That's all you're going to get.
Roll drums. This is the start of the drama.
Exactly. It literally becomes, well, this is absolutely unbelievable what's happened to me tonight. And it literally, you just get drawn into this. And I just find they have a fantastic imagination. They don't realise how creative they're being, because it's literally, and she paints this picture. And at one point I had this kind of itch in my head. She went, well, so I've said to the man, there's no chicken, and he's looked at me, and I've looked at him, and it's just this incredible life that and it's literally like, so you just want to say, so they didn't have any chicken, is that it? Can we move on?
Yes.
But there's partly, you sort of don't want it to move on, because and I just thought, how funny to put someone like that with someone who absolutely loves these stories.
In Australia, when I was growing up, my mother is no longer with us and was very, very dear to me, and she's still the centre of my life. But she was the world champion at what was called in Australia yakking over the back fence. Yakking over the back fence is when two housewives, as they were then called, it's like Wimbledon, except it's like when years before there were tiebreakers, one on each side of the fence forever, talking about nothing, with endless modulations on these themes, and elaborate use of language and so on.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah.
There's a character we haven't raised yet, because I'm very, very sensitively aware that you must be bored, starry-eyed with the idea of being asked to reproduce Laura and her catchphrase. Because once a catchphrase is on you, it's on you like
it's like
it's got its claws into your shoulder.
Yeah. I mean, I just could not have believed that would pick up the way it did with people.
Well, I'm not so sure it's the words with Lauren. Am I bothered, or is his face bothered? I'm not so sure it's her.
It's yeah.
And we're all scared of her.
We're all scared of her, and I've recently been named as the sort of creator of the Am I Bothered generation.
Named a Jane. You're super Shav.
It's all yes, exactly.
Have I been asked to Rosa, Shav or Chav?
Chav. Hard to say.
Chav.
The Chav.
Chav supreme.
Yeah. So there's been this strange debates on television about, have I influenced, it's all my fault. And
they must be crazy. Can't they see and hear?
Yeah,
it's crawling with Laura.
It is weird. And to be fair, they did have these two kind of analysts on, and they did say, if you think children were well behaved before the Cat and Tate show came along, you are crazy.
10 years ago, a bunch of boy chaps mug you on a train, and Lauren would be with them. Now Lauren can mug you on her own.
Yeah,
that's the only difference. That's not your fault.
It's not my fault, no.
So where did you get the voice? Just by you encountered Lauren?
I've kind of noticed that something kind of infiltrating the way children spoke, and it was what I think it is. It's a subconscious thing on their behalf. It's because they watch a lot of American television, and even though actually that kind of way she speaks, which is like that, and it's not even American, and it don't even match everything like that. What it does is, which is what Americans do, is, or a certain type of American, it goes up at the end.
Yes.
Everything becomes a question.
Like Australia. Australia and New Zealand do the same thing.
And actually...
They do the same in Australia? They do the same in New Zealand?
Yeah.
And finally,
yeah. And what's happening is it's happening now because... but it's just like, I'm going down the shop.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It sort of...
what's the mental mechanism behind it? Is it really saying... what I'm saying should be damn obvious to you, so you're wasting my time, even making me say it.
No, I think it might be a kind of, that kind of teenage and adolescent. It's a sort of a little bit bravado, because the thing about that character is she is ultimately a loser.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Does she know it? Yeah.
No, but she will always go down fighting, and I think that when all this criticism is happening in the newspaper, and incidentally, what I don't think it is the case that children have become worse. I think it's the case that too much authority has been taken away from teachers now. You know what I mean? It's like, I couldn't have done it. I was at school.
You think I'm going to disagree with that? Of course you're right. First of all, why shouldn't they suffer in school the way I did? And second, they need to be told what to do. They're children. That's why we call them children.
That's what I think. And I think now, I have heard this debate said, but do you know how threatening it is to have a child say to you in relation to why haven't you done the homework, to them say, but I'm bothered, but look at my face, is it bothered? And I think you don't have the sort of nous about you to say, now shut up and sit down before you get a dig, which is what I as a parent would condone.
Yes.
Not for my 4-year-old, I'd go and kill him if they laid a hand on him. But
you've created a comic monster, but of course you haven't created the monster. The monster is there.
Yeah, I've reflected what's already there.
Yes. Most of the liberals of my generation are now living with the consequences of our desires. Right. We wanted all this. Okay. We wanted people to liberate it. And what got liberated?
Yes.
For one thing, aggression got liberated.
Yeah.
Your comic persona, your art on screen depends on the audience perceiving the difference between the way things are and the way things ought to be.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
It's applied audience.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yes, I would hope so.
Yes, Lauren is nicely watching or something. Oh, that's me.
Exactly. Yeah. And I get kids come up to me who are that character, who are literally that character, but they just don't see that
yes.
it's, they come up to you. I had one little girl come up to me and she went, Telly. And I went, yeah. And she went, you Catherine Tate. And I went, yeah. And it was literally, it's full of disdain. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, I knew she wanted a picture. I knew she wanted a picture of her TV.
Because you've been on the telly.
Yeah, and it was literally, she went, right, can you sign that then? And so I signed it, and she went, I only want it because you're on the telly. You know what I mean? Like, don't think you're special or nothing.
Even in that.
And then, but then, do you know what? This is at this fair I was opening for a school, and then about 10 minutes afterwards, she came up to me and she went, you can have my ring. And she went, oh, that's really sweet. She gave me a Nike ring. Very sweet.
The fact that you're so visible, is that making it harder for you to be anonymous, to eavesdrop?
Yes, in a way, yeah, because, I think to a certain extent you can control how normally you live your life. Do you know what I mean? And so I would never want it to get to a point where I can't go on public transport or anything like that. But you just get there and read a book and that's it. But there is an element, yeah. People without invitation say to me, this is going to be a sketch, innit?
Yes.
What I'm doing is going to be a sketch.
Yeah.
So even if I wasn't looking. People think I am now.
The big question I got to ask you is, you're famous, you're creative, and people are interested in nothing else except your domestic life and all things that you find relevant to your art. Well, how do you not go nuts?
Personally, I never read anything.
Yes.
I never.
That's a hard one to pull off.
It is hard, but I've not been around in the ethos long enough to, for it to be. What I mean is, it's not like I've been successful long enough to know what I'm saying, but I've been burnt enough times by thinking, it's all right, I can read this, and then literally
it ruins your day.
Yeah, absolutely, and your mental health. I think it can, and I've definitely now got to the point in the short amount of time it is to know I don't want to know, because if it's something like an interview, if they're going to an interview in print, which has been they've been the most. I think when people review you, that's just the way it is. Do you know what I mean?
Press profiles are the worst.
It's an interview. Absolute press profiles, only in broadsheets, because I've only ever done broadsheets.
Should be good.
Should be good, and they are, and I think they're riddled with inaccuracy.
Yes.
And so now I think if they are going to represent the way I have accurately and factually told them, why would I waste the time reading what I already know? And if more than often is the case, they've done a completely different spin on it, I don't want to ruin my day.
Some of us brutes are actually feminists.
Yeah.
And that perhaps we have some guilt to work off, but it pleases us to see the females coming through.
Good. God bless them.
God bless them. What would we do without them?
God bless those little ladies.
So...
You're a darling child, you are. You're a handsome young man.
Oh, that's moving to hear. We must bring it to an end. I loved it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tate. It is Catherine Tate.
It is.
Catherine Tate.
Yeah.
It was Catherine Tate.
Thank you very much, Tracy Ullman.